Oh, hello there, and thanks for joining Uncomplicated Math today. Today we're going to be looking at how to divide whole numbers. And by the end of this video, you'll know the steps involved when dividing whole numbers by a two-digit divisor. So let's get started. So in question number 1, we're being asked to divide 146 by 12. So looking over to the right-hand side here under our steps involved, we can see that our first step is to set up the equation. So when we write out this division problem, we're going to begin by writing the dividend, or the number that's being divided, because the dividend is going to go underneath our division bar. And in this problem, our dividend happens to be 146. So down below, we're going to write 146, and then we're going to put that dividend under our division bar. So next, we're going to write our divisor, or the number that's doing the dividing. And in this case, our divisor happens to be 12. So we're going to write the divisor of 12 to the left and on the outside of our division bar. And up top, above the division bar, is where our answer, or our quotient, is going to eventually go. Now, when you're setting up a division problem like this, make sure that you give yourself lots of space down below, because when we move on to step number 2, going through the division steps, there's going to be quite a few subtraction operations, so we're going to need some space for that. So now we can move on to step number 2, where we're going to begin the step-by-step process of dividing whole numbers. So as we can see, there's 5 steps involved. We're going to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat that process from left to right. Now I know that that sounds like a lot, but as we start working through this, you're going to see that it's not as complicated as it sounds. So working through the division steps from left to right, the first thing we're going to do is we're looking at our 1 here, and we're going to think, can we make a group of 12 out of 1? Which we can't, so we're going to move from left to right to the digit of 4, and now we're going to be thinking, can we make a group of 12 out of 14? And we can make one group of 12 out of 14, so we're going to put the 1 above the 4 here to show that we're dividing 14 by 12, because if we put the 1 above the 1 here, it would show that we were dividing 1 by 12, which we already figured out we can't do. So now we're going to move on to the next division step, which is to multiply. So we're going to multiply 1 times 12, which we know gives us 12. So now we can move on to the next step, which is to subtract. And when we subtract 12 from 14, we're left with 2. So now we're going to move on to our next step, which is to bring down the number that's immediately to the right of the place that we've just divided. So we're going to bring down our 6 here. So now when we repeat this process of going through the division steps, we're going to be dividing 26 by 12. And we know that we can make 2 groups of 12 out of 26. So we're going to write the 2 here above the 6. And next, we're going to move on to the next step, which is to multiply. And when we multiply 2 times 12, we get 24. So now we can move on to the next step, which is to subtract. And when we subtract 24 from 26, we get 2. So now that we've worked through this process all the way to the ones place, we can't bring down any more numbers. So we're done with this division problem. So now we can move on to step number 3, which is to record any remainders. So we're going to check to see if we have any remainders. And the remainder is what's left after we're completed our division process. And we can see here that we do have a remainder of 2. So we're going to write an R beside it to show that we have a remainder of 2. So our answer wasn't a perfect whole number. So when we're answering this problem, we're going to express this as 12 with a remainder of 2. So when we divide 146 by 12, we get a quotient of 12 with a remainder of 2. So now we're going to move on to question number 2, where we're being asked to divide 484 by 15. So remembering our first step is to set up the equation. Our dividend, which is 484, is going to go below our division bar, and our divisor, which in this case is 15, is going to go to the left and on the outside. So now we're going to move on to step number 2. We're going to work through the division steps from left to right. And we can't make a group of 15 out of 4, so we're going to move from left to right and see if we can make a group of 15 out of 48, which we can, we can actually make 3 equal groups of 15 out of 48. So we're going to put the 3 above the 8 to show that we're dividing 48 by 15. And we're going to move on to our next division step, which is to multiply. And when we multiply 3 times 15, we get 45. So we're going to write 45 down below and move on to the next division step, which is to subtract. And when we subtract 45 from 48, we're left with 3. So now we're going to move on to our next step, which is to bring down the number that's immediately to the right of the place that we've just divided. So we're going to drop down our 4. And now we're going to repeat this process, but this time we're going to be thinking, how many groups of 15 can I make out of 34? And I know that I can make 2 equal groups of 15 out of 34. So we're going to write the 2 up above the 4, and we're going to move on to the next step of multiplying. We're going to multiply 2 times 15, which we know gives us 30. So we'll write the 30 down below, and now we're going to subtract. And when we subtract 30 from 34, we're left with 4. So moving on to step number 3, recording any remainders, we have a remainder of 4, so we'll put an R beside it, and then we're going to put up top R4 to show that our quotient, or the answer here, is 32 with a remainder of 4. So when we divide 484 by 15, we have the quotient of 32 with a remainder of 4. So hopefully by now you understand the steps involved when dividing whole numbers by a 2-digit divisor. Help make math less complicated by smashing those like and subscribe buttons. As always, enjoy today's math journey.